Morning, everyone, and welcome to our daily word today, Tuesday, September 14th of the year 2021. It's a beautiful morning this morning. Coming to you from my dining room this morning, simply because it's where my computer is at and it needs to be plugged in. And two, because I have to go to therapy. And so I'm going to make this mad dash from one place to the next, and then to the office, and then to a meeting this afternoon in Wapak. And so a full day, and I know that you all have full days as well, and things that we like to accomplish. And so it's always good, and I find it personally gratifying that you choose to join me every day at 10 o'clock for our daily word. It is our conversation about Scripture and how it applies to us, and if it does apply to us, and if it makes a difference in our lives. I think it does. I hope it does. It's a reminder simply, of the presence of God with us through the power of Scripture. And these words, ancient words, that become today's words and then often become new words that are a part of our lives. And we're enriched by them. And, I just think that's good news for us to think about and to concentrate on and to be reminded of in all of our lives. So the scripture for this morning, it's just one verse again today. We've been kind of stuck in that rut, but that's okay. Just one verse today. Jeremiah 17, verse 8. And these are probably familiar words for you, but they are, I think, for us, good reminder words. So hear this. They shall be like a tree planted by water, sending out its roots by the stream. It shall not fear when heat comes, and its leaves shall stay green. In the year of drought, it is not anxious. It does not cease to bear fruit. I think about these words, and the immediate thing that comes to my mind, and maybe to yours, but certainly to mine, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is about roots. We in our world have some huge trees, that have stood forever and ever. And we must know, we have to know, we realize that their root systems are deep and they're vast. And they're not only deep, but they also spread out far, and they provide for these large trees a foundation. And they're able to withstand strong storms, rain. They even, as the scripture says to us, and we know that it's true, they're even able to withstand drought because their root systems are so vast. I got to thinking about, well, first of all, I got to thinking about my root system. And my roots, I'd like to think, are deep. I was raised in a great family with a mom and dad and brother and sister and grandmas and aunts and uncles and great neighbors who we all played together, who we loved. And to this day, we are Facebook friends, and we share in some memories every once in a while. I was raised in a great church, Epworth United Methodist Church in Kenton, Ohio. We when you're little, you start out, at least for me, downstairs in the corner with this old piano, and we learned how to sing. And I didn't like to sing back then, shockingly. And we learned the Bible stories, and each time you moved up to a different class, and eventually you got to be in junior high youth group, and then senior high youth group, and I sang in the choir once I eventually liked to sing, and all of these things, and then to church camp and to Lakeside as a teenager, and all the things that I did up to age 18 or 19, those things for me were root developing things. Sometimes those roots went really deep, and I believe they have, and other times, they've caused me to spread out. Diane and I's anniversary is coming up on Thursday, and I'll talk more about it on Thursday. But we moved to Sydney 32 years ago, sight unseen, and we had no roots. in Sydney, Ohio. We didn't know one person in Sydney, Ohio. But in 32 years, we've put down roots, and they're deep and they're spread out. Roots are so important for us. There are some trees in Puerto Rico that are still standing from Hurricane Maria. They are still standing in spite of the hurricane because their roots are so deep. I like to think about I like to think about our roots, and sometimes I just wonder, in the midst of our situation that's current in our world, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, the whole well, just the pandemic, and then our reaction to everything. Sometimes I wonder, and this is just an observation, not being critical and not passing judgment on anyone, of course, because that's not what I choose to do. I wonder sometimes if our reaction to things, our gut reaction to things, is because our roots aren't very deep. Because we haven't chosen to be involved in a faith community, or we go in and out and we go in and out, and then whatever someone says on the internet, whatever strikes our fancy, then that becomes our position. I just wonder, if sometimes we haven't reacted well to situations, pandemics, drought, if you will, um, life and death, struggling relationships, um, the inability to see beyond today, because we don't really have solid roots. We don't our roots don't grow very deep. Think about our root system being deep and wide and broad, connecting me, you, us to the life source, which is deep in the ground, deep in the earth, water and nourishment. And then, our roots that are deep and connect us to each other, like I said on Sunday. And then our roots that are deep that connect us to God. And that remind us that even in the midst of our struggles, as the psalmist says, we don't grow anxious. Our roots, our roots are grounding and nourishing and strengthening and harboring of good things. Our roots help us to know love, help us to know of God's grace and mercy. You see, I think one of the good things about my root system, and often many of yours I know from your personal stories, is that my root system, my deep, broad root system, hopefully doesn't let me get carried away. It keeps me where I need to be, not caught on to some post of somebody says something that makes me say, yeah, that feels right. That's what I'll believe. And then tomorrow, oh, I'll believe that. That I hope, my root system allows me to look at it differently. Jeremiah says to us, we shall be like a tree planted by water, sending out roots in its stream. The water is God. The water, I believe, is our relationships with each other. The water, I'm convinced, is our participation in the faith community, worship and learning and serving together. It shall not fear when heat comes, and its leaves shall stay green. In the year of drought, it is not anxious, and it doesn't cease to bear fruit. Well, friends, I think for us, we need to hear these words in these days. if we need to put down deeper roots, to send them out deeper and broader, to trust God with where we are in our lives, to participate, to be connected to God, to reaffirm our connection to each other, to reaffirm our connection to our faith community, and know that when we send out roots, our roots are intertwined and our lives are then so connected that we don't grow anxious, we bear fruit. We don't fear when the heat comes. And of course, heat can connotate lots of things, right? Not just the heat of the day, but pandemics and life and death and struggles and worries and fears. When all of that comes, we don't grow anxious, but we bear fruit. Friends, it's my hope for us that our root systems would grow deeper and broader and wider, more expansive, more accessible, more available, to know and to hear the God of Scripture, God of today, remind us that we're loved and that we are beloved, and that our roots are really what hold us and shape us. And if you watch this and you say, man, I just don't know if I have any roots, call me up, text me, come to church. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's figure out how it is that we could bear fruit together and that together we could grow deeper roots for each other. So I pray you'll know of God's grace and mercy and love in your life as always. And I pray that your roots in God, in each other, even with me, would be deep and expansive and intertwining. And I pray that you'll know of my love for all of you. I pray you'll have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.